Brennan, the Ebola wrap is not deadly, and I'm told the Somerville Police Department is the first agency in the Tri-County to get them. That's right, Brad. Over 100 people joined in last night to join as one and say they're tired and they are hurting. Yeah, Carolyn, several agencies have joined in on the search for Fagan, mainly in that huge area. Exactly. The senior archaeologist told me today that they are taking the unboxing slowly as they want to make sure they get it right the first time. Honestly, Carolyn, it could be at any moment now. The Berkeley County Sheriff's Office has been here since this morning, making sure that one man who has spent hundreds of hours up in that tree will not be making his way back up. Well, Carolyn O'Neill says that a lot of questions still remain as multiple tests have yet to make their way back to the coroner's office. One test heading all the way to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. CCSD has made one thing clear. They plan to have every school vaccinated within the next 2 weeks. And after today, 20 schools will be checked off that list. Excitement is right. The hope for this drug is to assist even some of the 95,000 South Carolinians living with this degenerative disease. Planned Parenthood South Atlanta says that a temporary restraining order hearing will be held tomorrow at 1 p.m. But Governor Henry McMaster says that he's prepared for any of those legal battles. That's right, and the Americans for Prosperity group says that there are some concerns with the infrastructure plan that they want both South Carolinians and the Low Country to know about. Today we remember the lives lost as well as those who survived and the legacy that lives on with those who are continuing to preach forgiveness. Now, the 9 individuals that you're about to see on your screen were more than just parishioners. They were husbands, wives, grandparents, friends, and leaders of the community. Even more, they were the reasons millions mourned and came together after an irrefutable tragedy.
A family is in mourning, reliving the day that Jamal Sutherland died. They say he's more than a victim. He was a good man who would give the shirt off his back for a friend. News 2's Cait Przetak found out who he was and the legacy his family says he leaves behind. The family telling us they want the Low Country to remember their son and brother for the way that he lived.
He was a man of God. How many men you know hollering hallelujah when they're going to jail?
Amy Sutherland says her son Jamal was a good, God-fearing man who would give someone the clothes off of his back if needed. Even more, he was bright.
Jamal had enough sense to say, "You didn't read me my rights." He may have been mentally ill, but he was brilliant.
Jamal's mother noting that his illness did not constitute his death certificate.
Mental illness does not give anybody the right to put their hands on my child. That's my child. I love my child.
In honor of their child comes a call for action.
There needs to be policy change across the board.
That change stemming from legislation that was filed ahead of the end of the legislative session. Called the Justice for Jamal Sutherland Act, the act will take a hard look at the policies used in the criminal justice system and lay out exactly how each case specifically, those who are being arrested and taken to a mental health facility, should be handled in the future.
We immediately went to legal counsel at the State House and just told Jamal's story and figured out where was the gap in the system that led to his death. And that's where we are.
And while the legislative process will take time, as the session resumes in January, Amy Sutherland asked one request.
Ask those of you who knew your part in my son's murder to do the right thing.
The Justice for Jamal Sutherland Act was just one of the 3 pieces of legislation filed, each touching on aspects from mental health to the criminal justice system.
People who live in some Charleston County communities are living decades longer than their neighbors who live just miles away. A massive gap in life expectancy, an issue the City of Charleston's Health and Wellness Committee is working to tackle. News 2's Cait Przetak spoke with those on the committee and has more.
Depending on where you live, life expectancy in the city of Charleston can span 20 years apart.
This map really hit me side to face.
Mayor Tecklenburg says this map hits close to home.
You could live on one side of the Ashley River and expect to live to 66 years, which I will be this year, versus right on the other side of the river, the expectation is 15 years longer, 81 years, right, just separated by, you can see across the river. It's just an amazing disparity.
Dr. Kimberly Butler Willis with Roper St. Francis says that the data did not come as a surprise, and it's not unique to Charleston.
Healthcare attributes 20% of your health outcomes, 20%. The remaining 80, so of that 80, I want to say 30% is attributed to the health behaviors that you choose to engage in. So substance use, exercising, dieting, your behaviors. But that 50% is really the social and environmental factors that controlled our life. And we call those the social determinants of health.
This problem, a side effect of a larger issue.
These issues of access, not having equitable access to resources that you need, is a product of systemic racism.
Joey Curran, a health program manager with Trident United Way, says change can and will happen for these communities, but it will take time and acknowledgement of the problems.
From behavior change programming that we can try to help implement amongst our community members. There are policy changes that we can advocate for. There's a multitude of factors that we can tackle and we can use to try to address this.
Those with the committee say that there will not be a linear way to track the progress, but the best way to track it yourself is to join the fight.
A Low-Country stepfather speaking out after he says his stepdaughter was sexually abused and taken advantage of by a Moncks Corner school resource officer. The officer, Zedrick Smalls, was fired after the, quote, inappropriate communication with the student was reported. News 2's Cait Przetak joins us now live in the studio. And Cait, you've had a chance to speak exclusively with the father. What did he say?
Well, Carolyn, the stepfather reached out to News 2 to make sure his stepdaughter's story was heard. He says she heroically came forward to her parents thanks to an open line of communication. We're choosing to withhold his identity in an effort to not identify his stepdaughter.
And I explained to her that she didn't do anything wrong. He was the adult. He was the one who did something wrong.
A stepfather reeling after getting news no parent ever wants to hear.
A 51-year-old man, security officer at Berkeley High School, was involved with my 15-year-old stepdaughter.
He says the officer claimed to watch his stepdaughter on security cameras as she walked through the halls of school. Things escalated when the two began exchanging texts. Finally, the officer called the victim out of class and lured her into his office alone. That is when the alleged assaults took place, in the office of someone she believed was there to protect her.
And see, he used his badge and his uniform to manipulate her because she respected his uniform and him being in law enforcement.
Now he's calling for more intense screenings, especially for those serving vulnerable populations like children.
I have a better screening system for them because an officer shouldn't be able to leave one job after being complained about with sexual harassment or whatever it was and come to a high school where you have teenagers at. That's a recipe for disaster.
Even more, he's calling on those who may have been victims of the same officer to come forward.
Any students out there that may have suffered the same thing at the hands of this officer, please come forward and let someone know about it. Don't keep it inside. Talk to someone, your parents, a counselor, or someone, because my mind tells me that this man has done this to more than one young girl.
In addition to more screenings, the stepfather says he now wants policies in place that would prevent an SRO from being alone with any student. Reporting live in studio, I'm Cait Przetak. Count on 2.